right. Okay, what the hell is that? Oh, that's for me. That is strange. Hold on. So I just got a new laptop, and I still don't have all my usual tools set up on it. So
Sure.
for some reason, I have the HDMI plugged in, but it's showing the home screen and not this, which is odd. That shouldn't be. Let me see. I'll be right back. Let me go in the other room here. You know what?
Sure, no
Now
problem.
that the thing is going here, let me get some little background music for the audience so that they don't have to listen to me curse and scream and kick things when I can't figure out technology. So just bear with me. Oh no, wait, I don't have any of that stuff on here either, right? Because it's a different computer. I don't have my normal stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Oh well, they're just going to have to live with this song.
Now, once you, just a quick question. Once you live stream it, then do you edit it before it goes to YouTube and the regular audience? Is it the process?
Yes.
Okay.
That is what I do. But if the thingamabob is not picking up, see, it's weird. It's like it's picking up my computer, but it's showing the wallpaper of my home screen, my desktop. But it's not showing you, which I have open over the desktop. So I don't understand. And yes, I saw somebody in the comment section. I blame Tad too. He's not here today. And it's his fault. Not that he would know. And then it's got this stupid... God. Let's see. Well... Oh, maybe there's a way through settings to set up HDMI. Let's see. HDMI, because this is brand new, so it might be some. Nope, it's not even in there. Well, shit, Chris. If I can't get your face on here, it's moot. Because it's going to be a stupid video interview without the guest being visible. You know what I mean?
Right.
Let's
Do you need me to do anything, or
no, it's no, there's nothing you can do because it's something on my end here.
okay?
I just have to figure out what it is, if it's my computer or if it's the yeah, Jeff, this is how the machines will win. You're right. Let me see here. Anybody use a Mac? Hold on. You know what? I'm going to try one more thing. I'll be right back. I'll be going back and forth in here. So.
Sure. Take your time. Yeah.
All right. Okay. What the hell is that? Oh, that's for me. That is strange. Hold on. So I just got a new laptop, and I still don't have all my usual tools set up on it. So
Sure.
For some reason, I have the HDMI. I'm at a loss. I usually can figure out what is missing here, but it's not doing. Apple, you got me to switch over to you completely and give up PCs, and now you're completely useless to me.
Yeah. I have a Mac too. It's my personal computer.
Yeah. Well, so this, I have the HDMI plugged into our system so that it can read what is on the screen, but it's not reading what's on the screen.
Is there it just has the wallpaper. It doesn't have the picture.
Doesn't even have any of the thumbnails or shortcuts on the wallpaper. It's just the wallpaper. It's weird. It's got to be. Let me see if there's something in settings.
It's got to be a setting.
Yeah, software update. What would it be on it? I typed in HDMI and nothing came up in settings. Network. No. Network service. No. Sharing internet. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry if you're watching this here. Displays. Let's see. Displays. Built-in display. Wait.
Yeah, it might be displays.
Color profile. BMD HDMI. What is that? Maybe refresh rate. Rotation. Underscan. Oh, look at that. Okay, so it's weird. I do something with it, and I say that again. I'm sorry.
Does it show anything then when you change any of the settings?
Well, no. I mean, the only thing. So it's detecting that there's HDMI. Okay, wait. Mirror for built-in display. There we go. I got it. All right.
Good.
Okay. Mirror for built-in display. Let me just make sure there's nothing else. Okay, good. Perfect, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, when you said mirror, I said, oh, well, that might be it.
That's what it was, yeah. And of course, on my old laptop, whatever setting I had to use there, I did it once and never had to do it again, right? And then
then you don't use it, then you don't do it again for years. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. We don't need that. Move this somewhere. Oh, these things are so annoying. Well, I'm changing to a new thing for this purpose in a couple of weeks. So, all right, now we are ready to almost start. So here we go. Hope we haven't lost all of you live folk there. I'm going to go over to Patreon now so I can monitor the comments. If you have any questions, ladies and gentlemen, just jump in on the comment section, and I will, do what I got to do. All right, there we go. Jeff says, Tad looks like one of those Apple Genius kids that makes me feel no, but he's not. I still have to teach him how to do shit, and I'm not a computer person at all. So looks can be deceiving, Jeff. The only thing, let me think here. How are you going to say? Yeah, there you go. Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure you fill the screen as much as you can. You might want to angle your screen towards you just a little bit so that, yeah. Like that, right, yeah. You had a lot of headroom there. Just trying to frame the shot a little better for you.
Sure.
All right. I can only see my comments. Matthew Gillespie said, yes, Matt, you have to press on I'm going to make a video to show everybody how this works. Here. Sorry, Chris, bear with me 1 second here.
No problem. Yeah.
Okay, so look, here's the post, right? And you're watching. It probably doesn't look like that, but see up here where it says the title of the video? You click on that, it opens to YouTube. That's the comments that I'm monitoring. I'm not monitoring the comments below. Oh, that's why you don't see it, because it's not published there. No, I didn't edit this post, but whatever. So that's why you got to do it there, Matt. You have to go to another, over to YouTube. I know, it's stupid. It's just the way it works. Okay, we are ready to start now. What year did you write this? 'Cause I've had this for a while.
It's come out in 2018, I think.
That sounds right, because Pete Carmichael
2018.
got me on the book reviewers list, so that I could get guests, and this was one of the first books that came to me, and that was in 2019, I think, or 2020 when he did that. So that would make sense. So I've had this for a while. Yeah. All right, so we're working on chapter 3.
Yes.
And let's have some fun with chapter 3 there.
Sure.
Although it's not really a fun topic, emancipation and war and all that stuff. But we'll have fun learning about it.
Right.
All right. Let's
illuminating.
Yes. All right, let's get it started.
From the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios,
you're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg. And actually, I should say hello, patrons, because they're watching this live as we're recording it. But today we're talking to Kristopher Teters. Wait, I should have asked you. Do you pronounce it Teters or Teters?
That's exactly right.
Okay. All right. Good.
Teters. Yeah.
We'll start it again.
From the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios,
you're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, patrons. How are you? Welcome. Thank you for watching, etc. We are talking actually to, I believe, one of your own, a fellow patron, or at least at one time was a fellow patron. If you're not anymore, I don't mean to embarrass you. His name is Kristopher Teters, and he wrote a book several years ago, 2018, actually. We were just talking about it, called Practical Liberators. You must have seen the cover of this. I've seen it everywhere. Union officers in the Western Theater during the Civil War. And to prepare for this interview, I went through chapter 3, and that is what we're going to focus on today. But there are many more chapters. There's at least 2 others. If you can deduce that if there's a third one that I'm going off of, there's at least a first and a second. But there are plenty more after number 3. Kristopher, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, and I am still a proud patron and support the show. And
Great,
thank you so much for having me.
I'm always surprised when people who are more accomplished than I am are patrons, or just admit to listening to the show, even if they're not patrons. It's always nice. It's flattering.
Yeah, it's a great show.
So thank you. Oh, I appreciate that. What gave you the idea to write about this? Like, where'd you come up with this idea, this topic?
Well, it kind of goes back to when I first got interested in the Civil War, and which is perfect for the podcast addressing Gettysburg, because I saw the movie Gettysburg when it came out, and I believe I was about 11 years old. And it was what kind of got me hooked on the Civil War. Now, of course, when you're that age, you don't immediately start, plowing through Battle Cry of Freedom or something.
Right.
But
Right.
I started to get interested in looking at things. I think I started with like Bruce Catton and watching documentaries. My father was very interested in history and watching documentaries, and I'd watch documentaries with him. But the character Jeff Daniels plays Colonel Joshua Chamberlain in the movie Gettysburg, and when I saw that famous speech that he gives to the recalcitrant, I guess, members of that main
the
unit.
mutineers.
Yeah. And I watched him, in those dramatic moments about we're an army out to set other men free.
Yeah.
And how America should be free ground. I thought, well, that's interesting. And I always kind of, then when I kind of had that in the back of my mind, and when I started graduate school, I always wanted to know, okay, how accurate is that? And what were the motive? How did most soldiers feel about slavery? How did they feel about emancipation? How did they feel about race? And as I read more and more and started graduate school, and I read James McPherson and Gary Gallagher and Chandra Manning and other scholars in the field, I eventually got the idea, well, I want to look at the West, because the West hasn't been looked at as much.
Right.
And the West gave me certain advantages, because the West was a much larger geographic area that the armies were operating under. So if I wanted to look at how emancipation, not only how they felt about emancipation, these officers, but how they carried it out, I could see then how they carried it out as the armies moved. And so that's what gave me the eye for the Western theater. It was neglected in the literature. It wasn't as much looked at as the East. And I could look at both policy and attitudes and be able to kind of see how those attitudes influenced the policies that they were exercising.
Well, so speaking of policies and things, why don't we talk about, because in chapter 3, we're talking, 62 to 63, like that era there, kind of, right? And there's 2 things that you talk about that kind of got some guys talking, if not pissed off. The Second Confiscation Act and the Emancipation Proclamation.
Yeah.
Go into those. Start with the Second Confiscation Act. What is it? Why did it piss people off? Or get people talking?
Well, what I argue is a lot of, Second Confiscation Act was passed in July 1862.
Mm-hmm.
And it took the war, obviously that's prior to Lincoln's preliminary Emancipation Proclamation in September. So you have, in July, you have the Second Confiscation Act. In September, you have the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation. And in January 1863, you got the final proclamation. And so just within a few months, you have moved the war in a decisive, really pushed it in that emancipationist direction. And many of these officers, I argue, didn't enlist originally to emancipate the enslaved people in the South. They enlisted primarily, as a lot of scholars have pointed out, they enlisted primarily to save the Union.
Right.
And the Union and what that meant in a variety of different ways, to save democratic government, so the Union had a sacred quality, I think, to many of these people who enlisted. It was a very important concept. Sometimes it gets forgotten today as much of how important that idea meant to those people in the 1860s. But when the war started in July 1862 with the Second Confiscation Act, which allowed for the seizure of enslaved people or the confiscation of enslaved people that belong to rebels, that belong to people with rebellious sentiments. Now, obviously, this on the ground was very complicated, as that detail more in the second chapter of my book on how they enacted this. But that started to push the war in a different direction for many, and it started a debate, really. You can see it as many officers. There were those who supported it. There were those who saw very much its practical benefits, they even commented on this in the West, that after the 7 days battles around Richmond, when McClellan was repulsed from the gates of Richmond, that African Americans both were being used by the Confederates in that campaign and were helping the Union armies.
Yes.
And the Western officers were watching this. They were reading about it in the newspapers, and they were saying that there's a quote around Corinth, Mississippi, during the siege of Corinth. That I have an officer was observing that, look, African Americans had built the fortifications around Richmond and had built those fortifications at Corinth.
Yep.
So there's a benefit that many are seeing to taking away the enslaved population from the South and using these people for the benefit of the Union Army, whether that's as laborers, and all the cooks, teamsters, all different pioneers, all different roles for the Union Army. And there are some officers, both at high levels and lower levels, that see this and say, this is a good thing. We need to fight this war. They use we need to take the gloves off. We need to fight this war harder. We need to take away. This is going to hurt the South. This is going to help the North. Then there's a really vocal, in the West at least, there's a really vocal group that the second you start moving in that direction, as you mentioned it a minute ago, Matt, there's a really vocal group that says, no, we don't want it to go in that direction. We are very concerned in a variety of ways because of the Second Confiscation Act. We don't want, I think there's a group that really didn't want the war to go in an emancipationist direction at all. And so when they started to see that, whether it was the Second Confiscation Act, but even intensified with the Emancipation Proclamation, there's more that start commenting on it. And there are a variety of reasons that these folks give.
That's what's so interesting about this, because you have a lot of quotes from a variety of officers here: cavalry, infantry, different states, lieutenants up to colonels, and it is. I wrote in my notes, just war is complicated, and
yes.
And this shows it here. We like to look at the Civil War and boil it down to black and white. And by black and white, I mean no gray areas. You know, it's good and bad, good, evil, whatever, good guys, bad guys, right. Black and white. And there's no in between. And there's no bad guys on the good guys' side, and there's no good guys on the bad guys' side. There's no yin and yang to history the way it's taught to us. Unless, of course, you learn it through Addressing Gettysburg. But all you need to do is go and look at the quotes that you chose here, and you see that you've got so many different points of view. George Avery, remember that name? Does that ring a bell?
Yes.
Okay. Can you go into
from Illinois?
Yeah, from no. He was in let's see here. George Avery, who would soon serve as an officer in the 3rd Missouri Cavalry.
Okay, so
yeah. So he's talking about, he says, you say, explain to his skeptical future wife the importance of fighting for the Union less than a month after he left home. Is it not reasonable to suppose that if we make one division without resenting it at the peril of our lives, we would soon be called upon to sanction another upon the same terms? So he's I'm fighting for the Union guy. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Does he ever
absolutely
change? Does he? What's the story with him?
Well, that's one of the challenging aspects to some of this. As far as Avery, I'm trying to remember specifically.
Well, here I can answer for you if you want from the book.
Is it in there?
Yeah. Yeah, I knew the answer before I asked it. I just wanted to see if you do. Here, I'll give you. So at the same time, Avery deplored any move toward emancipation, not wanting black people in the North or anywhere close to him. Avery, quote, would not sleep one night in the tented field to free every slave in America. Indeed, he went as far as to claim that when President Lincoln declares the slaves emancipated, I will declare myself no longer an American citizen. So here he's fighting against people who, because of Lincoln's election and the paranoia surrounding that, no longer wanted to be American citizens. And he's saying, in his effort to preserve the Union, that if slaves are freed, and I guess, ultimately they'd be able to freely go anywhere in the country they wanted to go, including where he is, then he's no longer an American citizen. So it's complicated.
That's right. Yeah. And I think when you were talking about change, and I thought, sometimes what I was going to say is sometimes.
Well, some of them do. Some of them do change.
Yeah, some of them do. And you get more letters from them later on, like chronologically. And they change. Avery is definitely clear that his motivation is union and not emancipation.
That is correct.
And he is very concerned that when they, and that idea of union, just to point out one quick, I was talking about how important that was. And I think Avery highlights that, the idea of a division, if we allow one division of the country, if we allow secession to stand, if we allow the South to pull away, and in their minds, the minority undermine the will of the majority,
right?
Then it could happen again,
of course.
Eventually we're going to be dealing with a fragmented country. And so for them, this idea is not just about like unity or just keep the country unified. It's very much about the unity is preserving the government, preserving the idea of free government. Because eventually, if we keep dividing, you're not going to have, it shows the weakness of democracy itself.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting to me, and obviously I've read a portion of the book, but you wrote it, so you would probably have a better idea of how correct I am here. But it seems to me that a lot of these guys who were either lukewarm to the idea of emancipation or totally against it, and I joined this thing to fight for the Union, and that's what I'm fighting for, not black people, not emancipation, none of that. A lot of them change their tune once they've witnessed slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Is that accurate, would you say?
I think it's a combination. I think I immediately thought Marcus Spiegel when you talked about that. Marcus Spiegel definitely changes. He's originally against emancipation, and then I could find the quote, but he witnesses, I believe it's in Louisiana. He's from Ohio, leads an Ohio regiment, and then he's
is he the one who witnessed the little boy who was going to be sold once he was big enough to pick cotton?
Yes.
Where was that? I did see that somewhere. But go ahead, keep talking, and I'll look for it while you're talking if you want.
Yeah, I just saw it. I was just 1 second.
Don't worry, patrons. I'll edit this out when it goes out for free.
Yeah. If you look at the bottom of page 73, Justice Pratt, the support of emancipation, they also help explain those later conversions.
Mm-hmm.
And then Spiegel's actually on 74, at kind of the middle of the page, witnessing the brutality of slavery. You can see some examples there on 74 of when they converted, when they witnessed the brutality of slavery. But I think the answer to your question, I think it's a couple things that shifts them to eventually embrace emancipation. And that is witnessing slavery, just as you said, the brutality of slavery, as Spiegel talks about. And it's also this practical thing. So some of them take longer just than their comrades to realize that saving the Union is going to require emancipating the slaves.
Yeah.
Well, and so they start off and they're not for that. And then they eventually say, well, if it's necessary, it's necessary. And so,
because there's one of the guys here, is it Colonel John Beatty? He says, or Beatty, he says, this was because slavery is the enemy's weak point, the key to his position. If we can tear down this institution, the rebels will lose all interest in the Confederacy. So it looks like he's somebody who was for the practical benefits of the Second Confiscation Acts, right? And then let's see here. And another colonel leading the 5th Minnesota agreed, it certainly makes the rebels wince to see their N-words taken off, which is a source of private satisfaction to me. Crippling the institution of slavery is striking a blow at the heart of the rebellion. But I thought the war wasn't about slavery. I'm just kidding. We all know it was. Right. But I love this one, though, here. Is it the same guy? James Madison Bowler, also from Minnesota. He liked it as well. And he said, governing by love is played out.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. some of them had a turn of a phrase.
Yeah.
These letters are extraordinary.
Well, they are extraordinary because they sound a lot like modern people. And, even though they might be a little more flowery in the way they speak, their sentiment is still pretty harsh and hard and serious. And, something you'd be used to like a modern activist type or something saying. But these guys, especially the ones that I was particularly, before we go on to the practical guys, because they're interesting too, but I want to stick a little bit more with the guys who had like a natural evolution from I ain't fighting for slaves to Jesus Christ, we got to end this shit. Right.
Sure.
Because it seems to me like you I underlined a lot here in the book, so I'll find them as we're talking, but you have a few really good examples. One guy seemed to be appalled when these two white-looking kids came up to him.
Moore, is it Moore?
I think I'll find him while you're talking. But right here, Okay, it was William Kemper of the 17th Indiana was horrified when two enslaved children that appeared white to him came into camp. They had flaxen hair and blue eyes, and one had been whipped unmercifully. Seeing these sights, Kemper was not surprised that a just God would scourge their country. In other words, I'm not surprised that we're in the middle of this war if this is what we allow. Such encounters were fast abolitionizing the army. While one considers the prevalent racial attitudes of the day, it is hardly surprising that running into these white slaves would have such an impact. Most Northerners saw white people as superior, entitled to certain political rights and economic privileges that were repulsed by any racial amalgamation. These officers would not fathom how anyone who looked so white could ever be enslaved. If the system of slavery produced such results, it had to go. So I found that to be really interesting because they weren't white. They were probably, what would they have called them then? High yellows? Is that the term it was back then?
Yeah.
Like, so
they would use, right. It was a variety of kind of derogatory terms.
They're probably a product of rape, right?
Right. Exactly.
Well, I'm not probably.
And over time, it could be multiple
generations of it.
Yeah.
But they're still descended from slaves, so they're slaves. But this white guy from the North is seeing this, and it just completely blows his mind, right? Because he's just thinking black and white. He's not seeing it's a completely different system and way of thinking and looking at people in the slave culture. And what is it that they say? Like 1% of the population owns slaves or something like that, or less than one, or what's the number?
Yeah, it's a small number.
And I say this.
What is it? 1 in 20,
something like that.
Southerners. I can't remember the statistic off the top of my head, but you made me think of something that I wanted to mention, Matt. That I think some of these reactions, and they're different, obviously, but they're encountering, most of these men were from the Midwest.
Right.
Most of them from Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan. And the percentage of the African-American population in those states before the war is very low.
Right.
And so they have not been around African Americans, or that many. Some of them could have been, but not likely. Especially, and they're encountering slavery and African Americans for some of them for the first time, or at least. And so they're having reactions to that, whether it's about the brutality of slavery, and some of them are seeing that and they're saying, this has got to go. And some of them are seeing other aspects of slavery, like the so-called quote unquote white slaves, or slaves that are, and they're saying, well, this this is an element, since I see the world, because many of these Northerners were very racist in their attitudes. They held those racial beliefs of the 19th century, and they see the world, black and white.
Right.
And when they see, wait a minute, how can there be these people that look very much white and are slaves?
Mm-hmm.
And that bothers them a great deal.
Right. Because
they associate in their minds, what I was trying to say there is, white people have certain rights, there's certain privileges, they're not slaves.
Right.
And African Americans are in their minds. And there's this very racial, these kind of hard racist attitudes of the 19th century. And so this is kind of putting that in a little bit of flux or challenging it a little bit.
Yeah, because he's seeing someone who looks like he does, and now he can empathize. And he's like, wait a second, what? And if this system allows that, then it all has to go. Which, but then you have other guys, like, what's his face here? Oh, he was in the, let's see, Charles Brackett. He's the assistant surgeon of the 9th Illinois Cavalry, and he ran into a black boy who was to be sold away from his mother when he was old enough to pick cotton. This was so shocking to that Brackett decided that perhaps the slaves should be free. Lieutenant George Landrum in the 2nd Ohio was equally horrified over what he saw of slavery. Quote, "There is more barbarism in one little place like in the South than there is in the entire state of Ohio. Uncle Tom's Cabin should be enlarged upon." Even more significant, he commented, though obviously with considerable exaggeration, "We are all becoming abolitionists here." And I guess what I was getting at before, it wasn't a defense of anything, because it could have sounded to somebody that I was going down the road of like defending something, I don't even know what, because I forgot what I was saying. But my point with the point about the two little white kids, and really all of this actually, not just the white kids, but all these other examples that we'll get to, is most Americans did not own slaves. Most Americans did not experience slavery in any way, like witness it or anything like that. But oftentimes you hear, especially when Northerners by this point have witnessed it, it's like an anathema to them. It's just horrifying, right? Like, and it's one thing to read Uncle Tom's Cabin. It's one thing to hear an abolitionist give a speech. It's another thing to see it for yourself. And in a war situation, I would imagine all of your senses are a little more heightened and you're a little more sensitive to everything that you're going through and that you're seeing. And so now when you're down in the South and you're seeing how these people are treated, another guy was just appalled that women were working in the fields.
That was Moore. That was talking about,
William Moore, Captain William Moore. Utterly appalled to see female slaves working in the fields. Whoever was responsible, Moore fumed, deserves not the name of man. He should have inhabited some lonely isle where the female form should never greet his sight, and where, pondering upon the curious freak of nature, he might hate himself to death. I love the way these people talk.
They don't hold back.
No, they don't. He says, is there a just God, and will he always see his creatures thus oppressed and not send retributive justice with a sword of vengeance to teach traitors their duty and punish them for past offenses? Yeah, it's another guy, David Sparks, an Illinois captain. You say he was certain that some of his friends would criticize him for becoming an abolitionist, quote, but let them leave their homes and witness the blighting influences of the institution where persons with not more than 1/4 African blood in them are held in bondage, bought and sold like brutes, and then tell me if you think such practices consistent with democracy. So there you go. They used the word democracy back then. I always thought that was a Cold War thing, that we started using that a lot in the Cold War, but there you go. Somebody used it there. It's just fascinating to read these quotes and they're very different. I mean, like, so so there's the humanitarian guys, the guys who are like, no, but now I saw this, maybe I am an abolitionist. Now, how about the Practical Liberators, as the book is called? How about them? They're thinking this stuff is practical. And I think this is, by the way, this is the way for an abolitionist to win over the other ones who are resistant, right? It's like, okay, fine. Yeah. We don't need to do it to save black people, but look at how much it hurts the South. Look at how much.
That's right.
Because even though less than 1% of the population in the South owns slaves, all of them benefit from it. As you point out, around Richmond, those forts are built by slaves. Take away the slaves, they've got to build their own forts. And they're not a large army. So what does that do?
Right.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I think the practical guys were really, really important. Not only it's important for abolitionists to convince the North to embrace emancipation, as you're talking about, but it's also important in the Army. I think there's a lot. When I was looking through all these letters, I just found that coming up over and over again, Matt. The idea that this will help us win the war. And even some, I think that you were referring to the conversions later, but when we were talking about the William Van Antwerp, I remember his letters in particular, and this was back on where Marcus Spiegel was.
You're talking like 74, page 74, somewhere around there.
Yeah. So I'll just
there he is.
give you this one.
William
the
4th Michigan.
4th Michigan Cavalry's William Van Antwerp had repeatedly expressed his opposition to emancipation in no uncertain terms. So I remember reading his letters, and he was so against emancipation, he'd write about constantly. Like almost every letter, or every other letter, he's writing about something with it. Yeah. But then in August 1863, so that's well after the proclamation, of course, about 8 months. And he put, quote, I don't want to free, I don't want to free the African Americans by any means if the war can be brought to an honorable termination by any other means. Mm-hmm. But if it is absolutely necessary to free them in order to save the Union, I say do it.
Yeah.
I say let them go. And I just it was amazing to me how, like I said, some officers, that practical idea, the military necessity, the idea of taking away the South's labor force. Also, I think there's another thing going on here. I think it's not only this practical consideration of taking away labor and using it for the benefit of the Union cause. There's also the idea that slavery caused this division. Slavery caused this war. And so we need to eliminate this problem before we're going to have a lasting peace. I think Grant even talks about that in this chapter when I talk about Grant, Schofield, and Rosecrans, some of the higher ranking officers and what they believe in. But this idea of kind of practical emancipation is very convincing to Western Union officers, and it helps them initially embrace it. Initially embrace the Confiscation Act. It helps them embrace emancipation early. Some of them it takes longer. But that practical thread, that practical argument, is going to have resonance for them all the way through. It's going to convince some of them earlier, some of them later, but it's going to work. That argument is going to make them believe that emancipation is necessary.
Yeah. Now, so let's go back to that, because you said that some of them blamed abolitionists for the rebellion, right? That's what I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I thought that was interesting, and that's where I wrote my note, war is complicated. Really, it should just be life is complicated. I just wrote, some blamed abolitionists for the rebellion and wanted to see the Union restored as it was. So there's a guy, I remember now here. Assistant surgeon in the 41st Ohio overheard a fellow surgeon claim that the rebellion grew out of the rabid abolitionism of such men as Joshua R. Giddings and Benjamin F. Wade, and they ought to be hung. The surgeon believed that slavery was the just and right condition of the colored race, and the Union as it was should be restored. So it almost sounds like a Confederate. Right?
Yeah.
But he's fighting for the Union, but he just wants to bring it back to what it was before these wackadoodle abolitionists started getting all uppity, is what it sounds like to me.
Well, and it shows you how, one thing to point out there that I was thinking about when you were saying, with these politicians and abolitionists, is the North. Sometimes we think of the war as, obviously it's between the North and South, but the North is also very politically divided.
Yes.
And many of these men who enlisted in the Union armies were Democrats. They came from Democratic families. The Midwest, there's a very powerful Democratic presence in the Midwest, especially in certain areas like lower parts of Illinois and Indiana. And so the idea that there's so much political division or division attitudes on emancipation, I guess in some ways it's complicated, but it should be surprising in a sense, because these people were very divided on other issues too. And they saw the world very differently, I think, in some ways. And so, but even for some of those Democratic officers, that practical argument does move them. I think and I think the war changes things in a way. War's messy. And maybe that's one of the reasons we think of it. You keep using the word complicated, which I think is exactly right. It is complicated and it is messy because things are changing quickly during a war. Secession, the idea that they were going to war, changed everything for some of these people. I mean, you look at even a higher ranking officer, someone like Sherman, William T. Sherman, who is very reluctant to embrace emancipation. Might be a charitable way of putting it, but he does move in the direction of confiscation. He does eventually move in the direction of emancipation. He not so much with African American troops, but with emancipation. Sherman is changing there. But one of the things Sherman continuously talks about is the idea that it is the law. The Second Confiscation Act is the law, and he's going to follow the law. And they forfeited their right to slaves when they seceded from the Union, when the war broke out. That's what I was getting to. So this secession really was a problem for many of these people. And that changed from their pre-war attitudes. That changed a lot. And Sherman really highlights that, I think, that the idea that these people are rebels now. We have to win this war. They've made a certain decision, and we're going to do it. But anyway, that's a little bit off track.
Well, so while you're while we're going through all these quotes and everything like that, one of the viewers, Jeff Pasnick, he says, what did you use as your resources to write this book? Were you able to do a lot of your research online, or did you have to go digging into historical societies, etc.?
Great question. A lot. I did some online, but I also went to a lot of state historical societies. I went to the U.S. Army Institute in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and spent quite a bit of time there looking at letters and diaries. Went to the University of Michigan Bentley Library. Has a great collections of Civil War letters. Ohio Historical Society in Columbus, Indiana Historical Society in Indianapolis, the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library in Springfield. But yes, so I did a lot of archival research, but there are a lot of published resources too. Some of them were online when I was doing it. Some of them weren't. Some of them I had to get through interlibrary loan and use the published, version. Some of them you can get through Google Book or something like that. So it varied, but a lot of archival research for many of the soldiers. But there's so much good published letters now too.
Pete, one of our viewers, says, history, everyone's hands are dirty. That's true, especially in war, right? Nobody has clean hands. Another interesting aspect of this was some of the guys who were against emancipation, and I'm curious as to how many examples of this you came across. They were against it because they didn't want black people moving to the states in the North.
Yeah.
So freeing them would allow them to move to Illinois or Ohio or Minnesota or Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, whatever. How many examples of people making that argument did you find?
Significant number. There's a lot of concern, especially on the opposition side, on the emancipation question, that they will that African Americans, once freed, would come to Illinois or come to wherever they're from. Often it was whatever state they were from when they were writing home,
right?
And they would, they would take their jobs. They would become dependents. There's a lot of this racist attitude that's involved. That the North would have to support them. The white North would have to support them.
He worried that you're talking about Lieutenant William McDowell of the 64th Ohio. He said he worried that black people would not be able to find jobs and then would have to be, quote, supported at the expense of the hardworking class of white people. But there were broader political considerations in play as well. In McDowell's opposition to emancipation, the lieutenant feared that emancipation would alienate the border states and Southern Unionists, which would only make it that much harder to defeat the rebellion. So see there, he's got his personal reason for not being for it, but then also he's thinking of the overall war and the goal of winning the war. And it's like, well, now we're going to alienate these people who we need in order to win this war.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. That practical, so all the emphasis on the practical benefit of emancipation. There were those on the other side who opposed emancipation, thinking it would hurt the Union. And so there were those who said, okay, I'm worried about Kentucky or Tennessee. I'm worried that this will divide the North too much. I'm worried that it will alienate people. So there's that idea does cut both ways. Now I found a lot more of the practical. Eventually, it's a more of a benefit to the Union cause. And I wanted to add one more thing to what you were saying when the listener was talking about war being messy or dirty.
Yeah.
That is very true. However, I do want to point out in this research, I found that there's all these different attitudes, but yet I think it's also important to emphasize that African Americans understood what if the Union would win this war, especially once, I think it's even before some of the emancipationist policies, African Americans are running the Union lines. So, but it's definitely during emancipation, and in some ways, African Americans are help pushing emancipation on the national agenda. But it's definitely after some of these policies are passed as well, they understand that the Union needs to win, or whose side they want to win. They're doing everything they can. So many examples I found in my research to help Union soldiers, Union officers, and to do anything for the Union, even if the Union expressed kind of wasn't treating them the best. They were still willing, and the Union Army very much became an army of liberation, in that wherever it went, it broke down slavery. So these guys, even you get to the last chapter of my book, and I know we didn't look at that one, but with Sherman's March to the Sea at the end of the war, these guys might feel, and Sherman might feel however they want about emancipation, but the Army is serving the purpose of liberating thousands and thousands of people. And it's becoming a magnet for these people. And so there's some understanding that's coming out of all this mess. There is an idea of, what's going to happen if the Union Army wins. So what, even if there, like I said, there wasn't always the most moral, most humanitarian views when it came to African Americans. African Americans were almost always willing to do anything to help the Union Army.
Yeah. I wonder if that then begs the question, if you end up doing the right thing in the end, who cares what your personal views on something are, Yeah. I mean, the end result is the same.
I think it's a good point. Something I asked a lot during the research. Yeah, I mean, the Union Army there's several things. I have been the kind of historical school of thought. There's several things that contribute to emancipation. It's obviously the Union Army. It's obviously African Americans themselves, but the Union Army contributes a great deal, right?
Yeah.
Through breaking up the plantation South through their military campaigns, through causing all kinds of disruption in the slave system. But you're right, Sherman becomes a liberator in some ways in spite of himself.
Yeah.
And his army becomes a force of liberation. Now, there are officers in his army that were more pro-emancipation. So, yeah, it ended up with that result, no matter how they felt. Now, their feelings did get mirrored in the policies quite a bit. So their feelings did matter in the sense that they were trying at every turn, the Union Army, to use African Americans for their benefit. It's very much, let's see how African Americans can help the Army in different capacities. We'll take, this, we'll let them come into Union lines, but we're going to use them as cooks, pioneers. We're going to have them do some kind of labor for the Union Army.
But we're going to pay them, right? Didn't they pay them?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But we're going to pay them, and we're going to start having labor systems through the Mississippi Valley for those that, and Louisiana, through the occupied areas of the South. But yes, there's going to be compensation. There's going to also be a fascinating relationship between servants and Union officers, where some Union officers take African Americans as their personal servants, and that's an interesting dimension there. But
Now, when the Union Army, so, ostensibly when the Confederates are using their slaves to do the menial work, it's to free up a white soldier to fight, right?
Yeah.
Is that the thinking in the North too? Is, well, here we have this influx of people, we need support help. We're going to pay them.
I think that certainly plays a role.
Yeah. Okay. So same
what
idea,
jobs
it's under a different guise, right? Like one is I own you, the other one is I'm paying you for your time and your labor, like I would anybody else.
I'm liberating you.
Right. From
one way to think, I'm liberating you to work for the Union Army. Now they, but yeah, so it's a different, and the North is very much, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, those racial attitudes are still prevailing and how they're treating African Americans in their lines. Now, like I said, there's some variation with servants in that regard. And sometimes they, this is chapter 4, but sometimes they even send servants back to their hometowns. Like they become so close to their servant that they send them home. They send them back to Indiana. So there is that part where there's many who say, well, I never want to see African Americans in Illinois, or I never want to see them in Wisconsin. I hope they stay in the South. And if we liberate them, then they might go there. But then on an individual level, there's a lot of personal bonding that takes place between the servants and the Union officers. Now they still have those very racialized comments, and they're still very much, this is my servant. This isn't someone that's equal to me necessarily, but they start also describing these people with more positive adjectives than they would for the general African American population. It's, on a personal level, this person is helping me in my daily activities around camp, and I like them. They're hardworking, they're industrious, they're good natured, they're, they use those kind of descriptions, and then some of them, and they'll write home about them, and some of them will try to get, I would have to look this up, but I'm almost positive Alpheus Williams from Gettysburg was trying to get an enslaved person back to Detroit, but I'd have to look that up in my book. But it's ringing a bell there.
Earlier, I said I just want to clear this up for any of the future nitwits in the comment section who want to point it out. When I said that in the North, the difference is between North and South, I own you, do the work, and I'm offering to pay you. I need you to do the work. I'm offering to pay you. And then I said, like I would anybody else. I'm fully aware they wouldn't get the same wage. But when I said like I would anyone else, I mean, I don't believe in slavery. So that's all I wanted to say there is I believe that you get paid for your work, your labor, and all that other stuff. So that's what I was talking about there. So, because there's always that one person that comments like, actually, they didn't get paid this. Yeah, we know. That's not what I was saying. Yeah, go ahead.
I did run into some of the dollar amounts that servants
paid,
but
what'd they get?
I'd have to let me look real fast. It's in chapter 4.
Let me read some of the comments while you're looking here. 6 questions. Sure. The great 6 questions. Lentz says, I think the term practical abolitionists, or in the title of the book, Practical Liberators, is apt. To these men, the Confiscation Acts and Emancipation Proclamation made them instruments of freedom.
Yeah.
That is also, I believe, 6 questions' favorite Richie Havens song. Let's see. There's a little Richie Havens reference for you there. Often, the Eastern armies were under the gaze of Washington, but Western armies tended to have some distance. How did that distance shape their views of emancipation? Or did it?
That's a good question. I think that I think that obviously I didn't study the Eastern armies with emancipation, but I know a good deal about the Eastern armies. I think there's definitely pressure even in the Western armies. I'll just give one example. Their attitudes might lag behind a policy. Like there's still arguments going on when the Confiscation Act and the proclamation is passed. But when that Second Confiscation Act gets passed in July 1862, as far as Washington's influence of the higher ranking officers, they are very much conforming to that. Butler in Louisiana talks about the acts of Congress and is changing his policies in Louisiana to be much more emancipationist. Grant in Tennessee and northern Mississippi at that time is doing the same thing. And actually his attitudes, you start to see the shift in Grant's attitudes right during that period in the summer of 1862. And so it's important. He talks about basically how it's helping the Union to take away the South slaves. So Grant is even someone like Don Carlos Buell, who is is not pro-emancipation, is modifying his policies with the Second Confiscation Act a bit. So I think and Sherman is too. I think in Memphis, I think they're very much, Washington is influencing them quite a bit.
Okay.
I don't think that they were necessarily so, well, we're far away and we're not going to pay attention. They were paying attention to it. It's earlier in the war, but it's also earlier in the war in the East, like 61, when you have less direction from Washington, and early 62, when there's all this conflict in what to do when enslaved people come into Union lines. Grant has conflict. Halleck issues his famous general orders to try to prohibit African Americans from coming in, slave people from coming into Union lines. And so then there's all this conflict and problems. But once the policy becomes more uniform in Washington, once you get past that period in the summer of 62, I found that things even out in how they're carrying it out. Now, there's some differences between commanders, and there's still problems. I would also note there's still problems within the border states.
Okay.
With conflict. That's going to persist for a long time. Kentucky, in my case, Kentucky and Missouri. There's going to be intense conflict there because of all the Unionists in those areas, and because they stay loyal to the Union.
Was there something in researching this book that really surprised you or stays with you that you want everybody in the audience to know?
I think one thing that really, couple things. Of course, historians never say one thing, but a couple things. I think to reiterate the power of that practical argument for some of these officers. When I started researching the book, I didn't necessarily think I knew that was going to be there. I didn't know how strong it was. I didn't know how much of a driving force it was. And I think it's really important to consider that. Obviously a title of my book, but it's really important to consider those arguments because they had a lot of sway in the West. And also the fact that the Union Army, what I was saying earlier, that the Union Army was this force of liberation. It really, whether it wanted to always assume that mantle, sometimes it did more actively, and sometimes it did. But it really was. I mean, I found some stuff from higher ranking officers They talk about, after, I think it was after the Vicksburg campaign, I think it was both Grant and Sherman. It might be just one of them, but they just slavery is dead in this area.
Yeah.
It's like, it's dying or it's completely gone. So that the fact that the Army plays such a crucial role to carrying out that policy, I think, is really important to understand how the process of emancipation happened. And it was a complicated process, just as their attitudes were complicated. The way that emancipation proceeded geographically with these armies was also complicated. When the Army got in certain regions of states, emancipation would happen. When the Vicksburg campaign happened, or when Sherman marched to the sea. And so how emancipation moved geographically is also a complicated thing.
I guess I think it's in the Ken Burns Civil War documentary, and I want to say it's Barbara Fields who says it, but somebody says that the slaves knew this war was about emancipation before most whites did. And perhaps the fact that when the Army shows up and everybody flocks to them is a good example of that being true.
I think so. I think that there's many cases where it was General Orders Number 3 that Halleck issued, for example, in Missouri in '61, and that's supposedly prohibiting slaves from coming into Union lines.
Right.
Halleck says because they're giving giving information to the Confederates, which there's no evidence of that. But anyway, I think that's definitely true. I think even in an early stage of the war, before the government had moved on these policies, African Americans understand what this war is about and how they're going to be involved in this war. And even before the Union's saying, come into my camps, they're actually saying, don't come into the camps. They're coming. And there was an example with Channing Richards where a female enslaved, an enslaved female went miles and miles to get to the Union Army. And I believe she still had the chain around her ankle. And Richards talks about, the same Richards you read about, talks about that they had to cast her out of the Union lines. They wouldn't let her even stay. But before they did, they managed to cut off that.
I was going to ask.
Ankle chain. They did that part, but they didn't let her stay. So even when the Union Army wasn't ready to play the role as liberator at all early in the war, African Americans understand that's the role what's going to happen.
That's the role they're giving them. It's liberator.
Yes. So I think Barbara Fields has a great point there.
Yeah, if it was her that said that, I think it was. But
I think you're right.
Yeah. But well, I mean, if you think about it, right? Like, they're probably hearing all the pro-slavery people, their masters, their overseers, when they're talking amongst each other, they're probably talking about the politics of the day and the threat they feel from the Yankees and everything. And so whether they initially recognized it as, well, if we go to war with the North, this is a war of emancipation, at least by hearing the fears of the people, the white people around them, they can go, oh, well, gee, if that's the case, then we got to do whatever we can, to help this, or if they come near, we better run to them because they're our saviors. And so it's certainly not the North's intention when they start the war, or when the war begins, I should say, but that's the intention of the enslaved, is to make them liberators, right?
That's right. And
so it's funny because the attitude as I understand it, the attitude of whites around slaves was that they would talk about anything because it's like talking in front of children. You think they don't understand, or you don't whatever their attitude was. I don't know why, but they would talk about anything. And then I think it's also in the Ken Burns thing. I think it's a quote from someone where they're basically saying that we slaves have been spies all along, because you're telling us everything we need to know, as if we don't have ears. And so they know a lot of information.
Yeah, and they're understanding that, and they're understanding that when during the Vicksburg campaign, they're helping the Union Army. They're not only flocking to the Union Army camps for freedom, but they're also actively providing intelligence to the Union Army. I think, I'm almost positive it was Brudesburg where, that's where Grant crossed below Vicksburg, and that information was obtained from an enslaved person.
Yeah.
And so they are participating in these military operations and providing intelligence. Another example is they're helping Union escape prisoners of war. When prisoners of war would escape from prison camps, they would provide them food, they would provide them help, shelter, or so there are so many roles that they're playing within the Union war effort. Like I said, the servants, and eventually, of course, as soldiers. Was about 180,000 African American soldiers fought for the Union cause, and that was, we haven't talked about that yet, but that was a controversial question for many of these officers too, not just emancipation, but the use of African American troops. And in some ways, that was a debate where a lot of them never came around on. But they argued about that too, whether they should use African Americans in the service, and that practical argument was there. And when there were battles like Port Hudson and Milliken's Bend, where African Americans proved themselves in combat, that got the attention of a lot of these officers and said, yeah, they can fight. But then there were some officers on the other side that didn't even believe that the reports from Port Hudson were accurate, that African Americans could not possibly have showed that much courage, and were pretty violent in their opposition to that report.
See, but that's what I'm talking about. That's how they're able to know stuff, is because people think so little of their ability to eavesdrop, basically. Not even eavesdrop. You're in the room with them, and you're talking about politics and business and everything. Of course they speak the same language, for God's sake. They can understand what you're saying.
They're taking that in. I think you're absolutely right.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, they're taking that in, and they're, this, and like I said, they're providing invaluable, they're understanding what the war is about, making decisions themselves, very difficult decisions in many cases, whether to, leave, where they were and take all their belongings in some cases and go to the Union Army for, and depending on the part of the war, it could be a very uncertain life in the Union Army. Other times it might be a little bit different, but still it was definitely a refugee crisis. This is something that Sherman is dealing with on his march to the sea. How you get adequate food, how do you get adequate clothes, how were African Americans treated in contraband camps? Well, all of that, that wasn't the most stable life for many of them, but they were willing, of course, to risk it all for freedom and liberation, but then they're also able to, like I said, understand movements and things like that. So there's no question they just as the Army is playing a key role in emancipation, African Americans themselves are playing a key role. I know it's kind of, historians say that over and over and over, but I think it's the interaction, it's the way the two went together.
Yeah.
It's the combination of the two that help make this really massive liberation possible.
Well, you have to. I mean, you can't just sit there and hope that somebody comes and rescues you. You have to have a hand in it as well, and they did.
Yeah, they did, and they understood. On the other side, they understood. I'm thinking about Gettysburg right now, but they understood. On the Confederate side, they were capturing free African Americans and sending them back into slavery. That was happening on the other side.
But the war wasn't about slavery. Right. Yeah.
It's the heart of it. So, but yeah. So, I think that's very true.
It's the book is out through UNC Press. I'm sure you could get it on Amazon as well, right? You also, I know I've seen this at For the Historian here in Gettysburg, and there, if you get it from them, you get a 20% discount if you say that you heard about it on Addressing Gettysburg. So you might want to do that, but it's definitely worth a read. I love the books that UNC Press has put out on the Civil War, because there are these like little micro histories, and they're, you could tell it's something that the author was like, I wonder about this. Let me look into it. And then a book comes out of it. And it's fascinating stuff that I never would have thought of if I hadn't seen and read the books on these different topics. And it's actually, I have to say, like, the books that UNC Press has put out since I started doing this in 2018 have really opened my perspective and understanding of the Civil War, and kind of humbled me on it and made me realize, like, I don't know jack shit about the Civil War. Because and I used to think I did, and then I realized it's not a movie. It's not North and South. It's not any of that. Like, it's a human story, which is nothing. All human stories are complicated messes. And and these UNC Press books have really helped me understand that. And yours is among them now, in that I just, it's a wonder. It's really a wonder when you study the Civil War and even the Revolution, really a lot of the things that the United States has gone through. It's a wonder we're still here.
Yeah.
And we're still here as the United States of America, with more states than as opposed to less states than we started with. And I don't know what that means, but it means something that we're still here. I don't know what exactly, but it's great. Get a hold of the book, ladies and gentlemen. Practical Liberators by your fellow patron, Kristopher A. Teters. Anything you want to add before we go, Chris, that everybody should think of or know or whatever?
No, I appreciate you having me on the show. It's a great show.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to do it, and I enjoyed it.
And for the people watching on YouTube when this comes out, why do you encourage them to become patrons of Addressing Gettysburg?
Sure, I would absolutely. I'll absolutely encourage them to become patrons. It's a great show, and
thanks. You don't have to make something up. I was just messing with you there.
No. Yeah, become patrons of Addressing Gettysburg.
Well, Chris, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoy the rest of the snow out there. I hope your back is okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Matt.
Very welcome.
It was nice to chat with you, yep, I'll be looking forward to the episode.
All right. We'll talk to you later. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching, and hope you enjoyed this. Hope you learned something. Again, go pick it up. You can get it at UNC Press, Amazon, and here at For the Historian in Gettysburg. Tell them about Addressing Gettysburg, and you'll get a 20% discount. Practical Liberators, Kristopher Teters. That is it for he and I and you this time. We'll talk to you next time. And in the meantime, we'll be doing whatever we do when we're not near each other. Goodbye. Okay, that's it. Very good. Now, Ken Wyman says, great interview. Six Questions says, thank you, Chris. Great interview. Jeff says, thank you, Chris. Very interesting. Can't wait to dive into this. He salutes you. Great job. And Jeff says, it's for content like this, in all seriousness, I guess why people would be patrons. And now he says, back to making snow angels. So there you go.
Yeah. No, I happy to do it. And I like your point about kind of the complicated. I like that.
Yeah.
That kind of led into a number of different topics that we could.
Well, yeah, because it's all of these guys, not all of them, but a lot of them seem to be self-contradictory, like in many ways.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But aren't we all? You know, like
that's right. They're human. They're very human when you read they're complicated. They go back and forth.
Well, and they're also, I'm going to guess a lot of these guys are probably under 35.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm 47 and I'm still figuring things out. Although I find ever since 40, it's been a lot easier to figure things out with more clarity. But like, I still don't know a goddamn thing about anything. So these are younger guys, and they're in this tumultuous national trauma of civil war over an issue that, and isn't this such an American thing? Like, we argue over an issue that affects a sliver of the population, right?
Yeah.
A sliver of the population owns slavery, and we go to war. Right now it makes sense why we go to war, but if you just look at it superficially, right, it sounds like, geez, what, over 1%? But like, how are we not many times since the Civil War, maybe even including today, like viciously fighting with each other over something that affects nobody? And I'm not saying, you know, they don't matter, but there's ways to solve things without going to war, unless you lose the ability to compromise, which is what happened with the Civil War. And probably a lot more than that, actually. But
I was trying to find that number for you when you were
how much they were paid?
No, well, I could find that for you. I was trying to find the total percentage of the U.S. population in 1860.
Oh.
It was slave ownership, because you were talking about that.
Yeah, is it
1.26% to 1.4?
Okay, so it wasn't less than 1, but it wasn't even 2.
Yeah, that's what.
And I don't use that. I don't use that. By the way, I don't use that argument the same way the pro-South people use that argument. Like, I still think the war was about slavery, but that's what I'm saying. That this tiny percentage of the white population can get the rest of the white population, so, you know, most.
Yeah, and it's what it was, like 1 in 20 white Southerners were planters or belonged to planters. I have all those numbers written down in my lecture notes, but yeah, I think it's such an important system, I guess, you've probably heard all these discussions before, but for the white South, because of, they've speculated about this. The historians have discussed it a lot because of the issue of race and the issue of if I think McPherson talks about For Cause and Comrades when he's talking about Confederate motivations and why Confederates would have fought because he's trying to explain that whole issue of slavery when so many of them didn't own slaves. But the whole system in the South was built around this institution.
Yeah.
And they also felt a sense of value or worth because of being white in the South.
Yeah.
And just like the North, I mean, some Northerners did too, but with these kind of racial attitudes in the 19th century. And so,
well, I also think that, like, if you look at, if let's say you compare that era to today, right?
Yeah.
And well, from my perspective, I'm kind of in the middle, looking at on either side of me, going, "Will everybody just relax? Like, you're all insane, okay?" And I'm turned off by both. And and the way I see it from the middle is that you've got two groups of people who insist upon living in echo chambers that tell them the world the way they want to believe it is. Yeah. And so anybody who believes the other way is a threat to that world. But the thing is, none of the people on the ground, none of the people waving signs, none of the people going to conventions and rallies and all this other stuff are actually experiencing the problems that they think we're all experiencing. It's a small percentage of the population that experiences a child being murdered by an illegal or someone being shot at a protest, right? Tiny, tiny percentage. But if you have talented and intelligent people who are in charge of the platforms that give the message, in the Civil War would be the newspapers, and then money behind those platforms that want a specific message or perspective out. Well, now I understand why a guy who never in his life would ever be able to afford a slave would go and fight to defend slavery. It's all in the messaging. It's all in the messaging. And then also, but probably the part that he doesn't need anybody to tell him is that, well, my whole life, I've been told these people are inferior to me. So if they're freed by these outsiders, well, now I, the poor dirt farmer, am going to be in competition with somebody who's less than me.
Yes,
like
that's what I was.
So I can understand how that happens.
I think that played a big role, right? That last part you said, that idea that I would be in competition and I would be in my position in society wouldn't be as good, or somehow my value is affected if emancipation happens.
Well,
and I've been taught my whole life that the system.
Yeah, but wouldn't that, of course, be the poor Southerner's perspective if the Northern soldier is against emancipation because he doesn't want them to come back to his state? For the same reasons. He doesn't want to be in competition with people he thinks are inferior to him for work. Right? And because they're inferior in his mind, they're going to be on the government teat the whole time. And that means that's going to come out of my pocket. And so, it's the same thing. They're really the same. The same people. So it's and that's why I say it's complicated, and it helps me understand today better, and it helps me not get worked up about today because this has all been done before. And in fact, I think they're trying to get people worked up. They're trying to pull us apart. Right. And I don't want to be pulled apart. I don't want everybody to agree with me. That's fucking boring.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
no, I mean, I think discourse is good. I mean, I think it's, if you look at some of those attitudes, it's very American. I mean, these guys were in the middle of a war and fighting for their lives, and they're having these, as you could tell from some of those letters, that I quoted from, they're having arguments in camp about this,
Right.
about some of these political issues. I think, what was it, Hans Christian Haig
Yeah.
and Jefferson C. Davis? I mean, they had like a spat. I mean, those were two generals that, were having that disagreement. And so,
yeah. Well, he was let's see here. Oh yeah, I wanted to read this one during the interview. The 15th Wisconsin's Colonel Hans Christian Haig. He was talking about the bad news from Richmond and elsewhere in the East. He says, it cannot be otherwise. When the government learns to put in generals that are not afraid to hurt slavery or the rebels, then we will begin to see the end of this war. That's true. He's right.
Right. Right.
A more vigorous
exactly.
and more severe prosecution of the war. The time has come, or will soon come, to march through the nest of vipers with fire and sword to liberate every slave. I would like to help do that. Yeah, this is a fascinating book. I'm going to have to finish. This is on my when I finally get the time to read pile of books.
Right. No, I know. I appreciate it. I think that I think some of the questions made me think about some of the issues that I was getting at. So.
Well, and it's been a while since you had to deal with this book, right? Because you were.
Yeah. I mean, I did some talks when it came out, things like that.
Yeah.
And then so it's been a little while.
What are you working on now? Anything?
Not really right now, because I don't. With my current job, I don't get the time to do like in-depth research like this,
right?
Because I'm at a place where teaching is emphasized and working with students, so I don't have quite the time I used to. I have a bunch of ideas, but I don't have the time.
I know life gets in the way of all the fun.
Yeah. So
no new book or anything.
No, not right now. Do you think, I was just going to ask you before we departed, are there any other podcasts that would be interested, do you think, in this book? Another?
Yeah, I mean, none of them would be worth going on for you. No, I'm just kidding. Let me think.
I understand that.
Let me think. Which ones have you, how many of you, or which ones have you done so far?
I did Civil War Talk Radio with Jerry Prokopovich.
That's a good one.
I haven't done one. I'd like to do the Emerging Civil War. I think that one would be good.
They would be good.
Chris
Yeah.
Kukowski.
I could put you in touch with him. Do you know him?
No, I don't know him.
Yeah,
but
I could put you
I
in
like
touch.
his podcast.
That would be a good one to go on. I would say, honestly, that one. That would be the only other one that I think is good.
Okay. Because I listening
good for this type of format, like for a book interview.
Yeah. Because that's what I was thinking with my like I've done talks at universities and stuff like that, but I was thinking of a podcast type format. And
I would say Chris. I'll put you in touch with him if you'd like, and I don't know. That's it. I mean, in all honesty, I'm friends with a lot of other podcasters, but I don't listen to other podcasts.
Yeah.
I listen to podcasts of people who make millions of dollars so that I can try to figure out what their secret sauce is and make mine good, Yeah. So like I emulate the ones who are better than me. So, and I don't want to listen to people in my sphere of influence or whose sphere are we in? People that I'm around because
competing with. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really call it competition, but yes. Only because I don't want to, like 6 months later, think I came up with an original idea and then so-and-so already did it. And The problem is that happens all the time. Like we did a show the other day on Civil War railroads. And
I saw that one.
It was either
Rich
the
Core,
next, Rich Core, and it was either the next night or the next week. The Gettysburg Civil War Roundtable did a presentation on Civil War railroads with a different guy, but that was scheduled months in advance. Rich was scheduled months in advance. Just a lot of time, like you always hear like comedians do this too. It's like you kind of come up with the same jokes, even though you've never heard each other tell the same joke. You've never met each other. And somehow you essentially come out with the same joke, or like how Kevin Costner and Kurt Russell both came out with movies about Tombstone, or Wyatt Earp, I should say, at the same year. It's just, it gets into the stream. And so that happens anyway. So I just try to avoid it. Also, if they're better than I am, I don't want to get discouraged. Let's be honest with you.
Well, I understand that, but yours is really good. But
thank you.
If you want to put me in touch with Chris Mikowski, I'd be happy to, because I think he covers, at least from some of the ones I've listened to, he does some book type interviews.
We're his stuff, from what I can see from the titles, and maybe I have like seen a few minutes of like a preview or something. It's pretty much the way we do the Patreon shows, where if we have an author on, we'll talk about that, or somebody who's just we're very similar in that regard. So I think that would be the good one to do. All the other ones that I know don't do this type of interview. Like they don't do a book interview.
Right.
Not that this is really a proper book interview, but I don't have the time to read books anymore. So.
Yeah, no, I understand that. No, but I think we're able to get, not just chapter 3, but some larger themes in the book. So that was.
Well, and I hope people order the book and read about the rest of it, because it's fascinating. And like I said, like UNC Press, I don't know what they've done lately, but their Civil War stuff that they put out a while ago was really good. Like they had a good couple of years where like really great books were coming out. And I don't know
I was trying to remember what they did.
What, like around the time yours came out?
Yeah, I was just trying to remember I'd have to look at the catalog again.
Like there was Caroline Janey's Ends of War.
Ends of War, that was excellent.
Brian Lusky's Men is Cheap. Zach Fry's Republic in the Ranks.
Some of the Republic. Yeah.
Pete Carmichael's War
Zach
for the
Fry
Common
reviewed
Soldier.
my book. Yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot of good ones. Or maybe I just think they're all good because I started the show at that time and it was still all fun and games and, exciting.
Yeah, they did a lot. I was really happy part of the series because they've done a lot in that Civil War America series that have been good. The ones you were just naming, really.
Well, let me see if I can find it. See what they've got lately. Let's see, uncpress.com. Is it .com? .org. .org. They've got a holiday sale that's extended, 30% off, free shipping on orders of 75 or more. Okay. Crayfish, Crawfish, Crawdad, the biology and conservation of North America's favorite crustaceans. A Nation Unraveled, Clothing, Culture, and Violence in the American Civil War Era. See, that's interesting. People love clothing. Requiem for Reconstruction, A Black Counter-Memory and the Legacy of the Low Country's Lost Political Generation by Robert Bland. Craig Thurtell's Short of a Revolution, The Fusion Insurgency and the Triumph of Jim Crow in North Carolina. Jim Crow in the Asylum, Psychiatry and Civil Rights in the American South. See, that's fascinating. Who comes up with this shit? Like that's what I'm saying. Like, where do you get these ideas for these titles? And that's why I find them so fascinating, because I would never think of them until somebody else thinks of them, and then I go, of course. Like that's fascinating. Like that you did, and it's a thing.
They got. I want to read this one, the 6th Wisconsin and the Long Civil War, James Martin biography of a regiment.
Oh, and that's UNC Press?
Yeah, so that's under the Civil War America series. And it's called The 6th Wisconsin and the Long Civil War.
See, this one here, Land, Language, and Women, a Cherokee and American Educational History. I would find that fascinating, too.
Yeah.
The Legend of Wyatt Outlaw, from Reconstruction through Black Lives Matter. UNC Press presents podcast. Oh, they have a podcast. Oh, you should see if you can go on their podcast.
Oh, that would be interesting. Yeah.
I mean, it's their damn book, right?
Yeah, they ought to. I'd let you on there.
Subjects. Let's see. Where is the Civil War series?
Oh, okay. It's under. Hold on, man. Pull it back up. It was under
history. No
category. How did I get to this?
Yeah.
If you go under books, like at the very top on the left, and you go under books, and then under subjects, the third one down there's series.
Okay, so books, series. Okay.
And then
Civil War America. There it is.
Yep.
Okay.
And then that's the.
Yeah, Caroline Janey, Aaron Sheehan D. Oh, Aaron's came out. Calculus of Violence, that came out at that time.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a series editor, but what are the books? Okay, here they are.
A Republic, you're right, Zach Fry's book, Republic in the Ranks.
The Heart of Hell, about Spotsylvania, Benjamin Butler. These are more recent ones. Bonds of War, David Thompson, Love and Duty, Angela Elder, we did a show on that one. Spectacle of Grief, we did a show on that one. Searching for Black Confederates, Kevin Levin.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That was a good one. Jill Titus, Gettysburg, 1963, yours. This Grand Experiment, we didn't do that one. The General Civil War, I'd like to do that one. We haven't done that. I have that at home. The Record of Murders and Outrages. Ooh, that's one I would like.
See it.
Union in
William Blair.
Yeah.
Bill Blair. Yeah.
Meet at Gettysburg, Kent Masterson Brown. We did that one. I got one on Braxton Bragg, Lincoln and the Politics of Slavery, Battled Freedom, Fighting for Citizenship, Fighting for Atlanta, The Battle of Peachtree Creek by Earl Hess. Another one there.
I know.
There's a lot of them here.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I didn't get all these. I like the covers they do too, because I don't read. I just look at pictures. An Environmental History of the Civil War. That was a good one. Gathering to Save a Nation, Stonewall's Prussian Map Maker, The Stormy Present, Conservatism and the Problem of Slavery in Northern Politics, A More Civil War, How the Union Waged a Just War. But did they? Living by Inches, that one I have, that I actually want to get into because that sounds good. That's the smells, sounds, tastes, and feeling of captivity in Civil War prisons. See, that means somebody had to sit there and go, I wonder what it's like to be in a Civil War prison. Oh, maybe I'll go and look up what the soldier said. And then he wrote a book. Private Confederacies, Jim Broomall, we interviewed him for that one. The Yankee Plague, Lorian Foote. I had her on, but not about that one. There's
I haven't had a chance to read that one yet.
A lot of books.
Reluctant Rebels by Ken Now.
Oh, see, I would like to read that one. Reluctant Rebels.
Yeah, it's a good
you
one.
would think that all who were in the South wanted to be rebels, proud rebels. Some were reluctant.
Right.
Never heard that before.
Right. Right. I think it was the late. I think he looks at the late enlistees, like not the ones that enlisted right away.
Ah, okay.
Like the ones that were later.
Yeah, Confederate slave impressment in the Upper South, Nature Civil War, another one. Yeah, there's a lot more I need to get sent to me here.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize it went so deep. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Cities of the Dead. That would be interesting. West Pointers in the Civil War. Yeah. All right, well, I'll have an email to send.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to let you go because I got a show to do at 7 and I got to go grab something to eat.
Sure. No, I understand. I just lost where's the video?
Oh, you're not missing much.
There it is. I got it again. I had to win the. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it, Matt. I'm gonna go do some work with some students. So
good. And by the way, if anybody is still watching at this point, okay. Anybody's still watching? I actually have 2 copies of this book. One that was originally sent to me, and then I think you sent me another one because I couldn't find it, but I've since found it. And so if anybody in the audience would like a copy of the book, I have one. To get it, just first one to send me $175 wins. So there you go. All right. That's it for me. I got to get going. Thanks, Chris. It was great talking to you.
All right. Thank you, Matt.
You're
it was
welcome.
Good meeting you.
Thank you. And thank you for being a patron.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Have
a good
to you
day.
later. You too. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. And then all you guys watching still, thank you for eavesdropping on our conversation. You're not eavesdropping. I left the mics open. I mean, come on. I wanted you to hear it. Okay. I'm going to go turn this all off. Thank you very much for watching, and enjoy your snow angels and everything else. Okay? All right. Very good.
Join the fun and learn a ton. Become a member of the AG community at Patreon.